Hello there. Happy April to you. This is Molly McCord. We're going to look at the second Libra full moon of 2019. This one is happening April 19th, 2019 at 4:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure and adjust for your location on the planet. And it is the second Libra full moon. The first full moon we had was on March 20th at 0 degrees of Libra, which is a beginning energy. 0 degrees of Libra is also considered an Aries point, as that is a cardinal sign. So it was a beginning of something that you were meant to realize over this lunar cycle. And then we had the Aries new moon on April 5th at 15 degrees of Aries, which is a time of strength in oneself, taking the risk to be you, to not worry about anybody else, but to understand who you are right now, where you are meant to generate more courage and confidence in yourself. Then following that new moon in Aries, we now arrive at the second Libra full moon at 29 degrees, and it is a closing moon. This is a critical degree full moon because it is at 29 degrees, and that is the last degree of Libra. And anytime we have a lunar focus at a 29 degree point, we are realizing something is meant to change. There is a shift. There is a completion. The 29 degree point is a completion energy. And so over this full lunar cycle, you've been understanding more about yourself, which is Aries, and how you share your energy with others, which is Libra. Every full moon is an illumination, and it reveals what was hidden. It reveals what was not seen. And so there's something coming to light about what you need in relationships, beginning with your relationship with yourself, beginning with what you've come to understand about who you are now and what matters to you, and how that is mirrored to you through the people and energies around you in your life, in your world. And so this is a time of really understanding that we are living in a dynamic season of change during the middle of April, and there are chapters closing. And in this chart, we have a few areas that signal the ending of chapters, the ending of a story, conclusions being arrived at. It's not only the 29 degree point here of the moon, but then we look at the ruler of this moon, which is Venus. And Venus is at 28 degrees of Pisces. So also getting close to the end of Pisces at 28 degrees, right? The very end of the zodiac being 29 degrees of Pisces. And also the energy of completion and closure. And Venus being exalted in Pisces is about coming to a place of bigger understanding around what you've been learning with others, with people, through yourself, and how it's time to move on. And part of this energy is saying, can you be at peace with what you've learned, what you've resolved? The moon in Libra can be good at conflict resolution, can be good at seeing the other side of the story. It's objective. It understands that, it takes two to tango, and how am I showing up, and how's that affecting someone else, and how are they affecting me? So the strength of Libra is knowing that there's a back and forth dynamic that is shared. And you're being asked to look at who you are now and to know that it's time to move forward. the sun at the last degree of Aries here will be making a conjunction to Uranus at 2 degrees of Taurus within 2 to 3 days of this full moon. That's also revolutionary, liberating, freedom. It's where you say, I can't take this anymore. I have to be me. I have to own who I am. I have to understand what matters to me now. This Uranus energy is about our values and understanding that we're experiencing April burst of freedom, and the sun is conjunct Uranus only once a year. So there's a strong beginning energy a few days after this full moon. But some things have to be understood because this Venus in Pisces is looking for closure in your heart, in a part of you you've been healing. Keep in mind that Venus is actually covering the territory that Chiron in Pisces was just in late 2018, early 2019. She's bringing in some love, healing, and acceptance of those Chiron and Pisces wounds. She's asking you to love yourself, be okay with your choices, understand that we live in a world that's meant to change, and there's a lot of change here in this chart. So Venus in Pisces at 28 degrees, the ruler of this full moon, is also completing something that she was holding in her heart, and she's being asked to let go. This is a big letting go energy. Now, not only is the moon going to conjunct Uranus, this is the energy of earthquakes, quick changes, cosmic breakthroughs, big understandings, life changes. This is when the sun is conjunct Uranus, it's unpredictable. Things happen fast, things change, things are set free. But before this happens, we're going to see the moon move into Scorpio, get to 2 degrees of Scorpio on April 19th, the same day of this full moon. Oppose Uranus, secrets revealed, things come out, emotional outbursts. The moon wants to get it out and understand what's been hidden. So there's a lot of dynamic energy here that's about setting something free that you've been carrying or holding that's no longer true to what you're building. We also see how Mercury is now in Aries and conjunct Chiron at 3 degrees of Aries. So this is being very careful with what you say. Words can wound. Words that are spoken too quickly. Insert foot in mouth. Understanding that sometimes the wounding happens faster than we realize, because Aries is a fast-moving energy. So we're meant to be sitting. Aries is not a sitting energy, but with Chiron here, go consciously forward. Move with consciousness. Be mindful of what you're thinking and saying, especially to yourself, especially to your inner world and what's coming up. Because this feels like if there is big discomfort, which this full moon has, it has discomfort, it's easy to lash out or to speak in anger instead of staying mindful of what is being healed, like what's coming up to your awareness within you that you're meant to understand and to simply love and to simply accept it as a way to know yourself with greater mindfulness. And that's one of the best and highest ways to use Mercury conjunct Chiron. So a lot of interesting energies here as we move through the middle of April. Closure, the end of a chapter, the turning of a page, letting go. All huge themes here. And that's not only, like I said, because of the moon at 29 degrees, Venus in the final degrees of Pisces, but then we also have, here's the north node. That means the south node is right over here. So Pluto was conjunct the south node earlier in April, and now we have Saturn at 20 degrees conjunct the south node as well as we close out April. The south node is letting go of ending completions of energies that are no longer needed. They serve their purpose and they're meant to be released. And with Saturn there, it's looking at what do I take that's mine. It's claiming responsibility about what was contributed, what you were learning, what you feel responsible for. And I feel like there's a karmic completion energy here. And karma isn't good or bad. It's simply energy that comes back around like a boomerang because it's incomplete. And oftentimes karma is created from lower consciousness. But when you've reached into higher consciousness, you can understand the role you played, what you decided, what you chose, how you contributed. So this is an energy of consequences, endings, release, letting go, but doing so with maturity. Doing so in saying, okay, I had that experience, I had that lesson, I learned from it, and I understand what it was about, and I'm not going to make those choices again. That's another thing with this strong energy, is understanding how when the lesson is learned, it's completed. That energy is completed. So another signature of completion in this full moon. And of course, Capricorn is the world, corporations, governments, institutions, politics, and we can see in the world how there are big changes happening and in the works. So this energy shows us how the world is changing. And that means that each of us is affected. And we are each changing and evolving as well. And so we are being asked to look at claiming our energy with a new level of maturity and responsibility so that we can continue to master who we are, but also who we want to be in the world and how we want the world to look. Now, I realize that in this chart, it has the appearance of a grand cross, and I use only a 2 or 3 degree orb with Pluto because it's so slow moving. So I interpret this chart to mean that it's actually days, about 6 days before this full moon is when the sun squared Pluto. And so I don't use a grand cross interpretation in this chart. Some astrologers might do that, but I don't because the orbs are so big. The orbs are the degrees. But there is tension that was building before this full moon when the sun not only squared Pluto, but squared Saturn as well. So because of those squares between the sun and Pluto and the sun and Saturn, there again is an understanding at this full moon of what needs to shift and change, of what's done and complete, of what has been killed, because Pluto kills an energy. It is the energy of this must die so something new can be reborn. Again, the ending of a chapter, closure, moving on, understanding that a full cycle has played out. And in your chart, you would look at where 29 degrees of Libra is to understand where that completion energy is happening for you. But it's a month of changes. It's a month of putting yourself on the new track or the new trajectory that actually is in better alignment with where you're truly going. And this North Node at 21 degrees of Cancer is calling us home to our hearts. We can play the roles, and we've had to play certain roles in life. We have to be the grown-ups, get a job, pay the bills, everything that is important to building the structure of a life and following a path that we know has value, that we know matters, that we contribute through a career, through a profession. But this North Node is reminding you of who you are before you had those roles and responsibilities. And it's asking you to listen to what those messages are, because they can be drowned out and overridden. And there is an energy here, understanding who you are now and what you value, and knowing that it's meant to look different. It's meant to be changing in April. Because as the sun approaches this conjunction to Uranus at 2 degrees of Taurus, it shakes up what we took for granted, what we resisted, what we didn't realize mattered to us. And so I feel like that's part of this full moon, is that it's setting us free from where we thought we had to show up for other people, and saying, come back to yourself and build from that place right now, because that will make you stronger. And that will help you be in alignment with what you need. And then the mind can have the fears. The mind conjunct Chiron has the doubts, the lack of confidence, the sense of, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if that's right for me. But as Mercury moves on, it gains greater trust in itself as it moves through Aries and says, yes, I can, yes, I can, yes, I can. So we're meant to be shifting at this full moon. Jupiter is now retrograde until August. Jupiter will go back to 14 degrees of Sagittarius, and will ask you to look at what you believe in now and to reevaluate what you've been learning, to check in with how you truly believe in yourself in a way that supports your current direction. Beliefs are something we can keep upgrading and reworking. And so that's important too at this time. And the other important thing about this full moon is that it helps to reset the lunar cycle. For over a year now, we've had a full moon followed by a new moon. And as we move into May, on May 4th, we will have a new moon in Taurus, which is very strong. It's a very supportive new moon, followed by a full moon in Scorpio. And this is how the lunar cycle rhythm is meant to unfold. We're meant to have the sun and the moon conjunct first and then separate out over 2 weeks to create a full moon. And that hasn't been the case for over a year now. We've had full moons that bring up bigger emotions, activations, revelations, and then it's this closing hustle to the new moon to reset. So when there's a full moon before the new moon, there tends to be a reactionary energy. Now, starting in May, we return to the typical lunar cycle of a new moon in whatever sign the sun is in, followed by a full moon 2 weeks later in the opposite sign of the sun. This, I feel, brings us back into a natural rhythm, brings us back into a sense of I can build something based on my intentions. So the new moon in Taurus will be a time of getting clear on your intentions in Taurus energies and values. And then the following full moon, it's actually the Scorpio full moon, which is known as the Buddha moon, is a time of deep understanding and growth and transformation. So one of the gifts, again, of this Libra full moon is that it's ending the energies that have been out of sync and out of balance, and returning us to that flow and that place of working with the natural rhythms of the lunar cycle, as well as giving us, I feel, a new optimism that when you set an intention with the new moon, it syncs up with the full moon's revelations. So that's been out of sync for a while, and there's a return to a flow and a grace, and again, the rhythm of energies that we need as we move through this very big year. Do keep in mind that both Saturn and Pluto will station retrograde before the end of April. I have a separate podcast episode for you talking about the April 2019 retrogrades. And that means that Saturn is going to be traveling with the South Node until September. We have big energies this summer. We have eclipses conjunct Pluto. We have Saturn traveling with the South Node, and our world is changing. Okay, we are transforming collectively, individually. We are going to see changes that will end certain parts of our world experiences. And I realize that sounds like hyperbole, but that is how big it is. I'm sure you've heard other astrologers say the same. We're living in big times. And if you return to your heart, to what you want, and believe about what matters to you in your personal world, that will carry you through the big changes of 2019, of these big energies, and also help you retain your internal power regardless of all the big significant developments in the world. So with this full moon, friends, I hope that you can arrive at a place of peaceful resolution, loving completion, and understanding that a new aspect of you is coming through. When the sun is conjunct Uranus, it can be a cosmic download of understanding and brilliance. So stay open to what you are receiving. And as we move through the last few weeks of April and into May, we will be on more terra firma as the planets move into Taurus, and we have some supportive connections to planets in Taurus with Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. So onwards we go, And if you would like to learn astrology with me, I offer a number of options. I have a weekly transits class where we talk about the transits every week, very affordable. You follow along in your chart, you learn a lot about astrology. Many people have said they have learned quickly. They've accelerated their astrological knowledge through this weekly astrology course. And I also have a Astrology 101 course with 6 on-demand classes, and then also the Astrology of Relationships, which is more of an intermediate advanced class that explains more about relationships in your chart. So you can check out any of that below this video. As always, thank you so much for your likes, subscribes, and comments. And I know that this video was a little bit darker. My son was playing with my tripod here, and I didn't realize it until I was taping it that it affected how things show up. But I trust you can see everything okay, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon to talk about that new moon in Taurus. Have a beautiful day.